Good morning, everybody. It's a beautiful sunny morning here. I hope it's beautiful and sunny wherever you are. And if not outside, let's make it inside. So, it's sunny inside, that is. All right, this is the Wifey Wake Up podcast. And first of all, to start out, please comment. Would like to hear your thoughts on this one, and subscribe. Men and women would love to hear from you. Women, and women, men and women, this will touch you differently, I imagine, and I appreciate support from all of you. So today we're talking about Ode to the Homemaker, and I can already tell that this is going to be more than one podcast. So this is part one. And as all podcasts are based upon my own experience of being married for over 20 years and what I've learned in the process, and especially what I wish I had known sooner. So here's something that I like to do. I like to either look up definitions of words or even translate them into other languages that I know. That they really provides insight into the true meaning, or even just a deeper meaning of the word. And in this case, homemaker, I'm going to translate into Brazilian Portuguese, which is Dona de Casa. And it literally means lady of the home. It can also mean housewife, although Dona is more lady. And we also have said that at one point for lady of the home. Sometimes I remember as a kid, I would hear men in particular ask, is the lady of the home available? And it wasn't something that you could sense that it was kind of an antiquated term, but it was brought back into the present day out of respect and endearing for the woman. And I really like that. I think it's a beautiful context if you, because I think homemaker these days is really made out to be very dull. And since it is synonymous, lady of the home, let's just kind of think upon that as we get started here. So you don't have to be a person of nobility to be called lady. I prefer the word itself more than, that woman over there or that gal, or especially these days, people are saying female. And that just rubs me wrong, because female is indicating, it's are they in a lineup for breeding or something? I would like that female over there. No, it's a human. It's a woman. She's a woman. And I think lady in particular, if she has any semblance of being a lady, is a really beautiful word. So just keep that in mind as we're talking about this. But I will often think back to when I was, quote, just a homemaker. And I say just because really that role needs to be covered no matter what. Someone needs to be doing those, at least the tasks that involve homemaking, the cooking, the cleaning, to the degree that they're going to decorate their home and make it a homey place. If someone is not doing that as a full-time occupation, it's being either being half done, or it's being done among multiple people, or even hired out. So when I say just a homemaker, mind you, I know that I feel it every day, even in my home now that I work from home, but my time and energy is really, really divided. And that is also to say that a large component of homemaking is the care aspect. And I think this is the part that's really overlooked, because you can hire out the cooking, you can hire out the cleaning, you can hire out the decorating, but you can't hire out the caretaking aspect when someone's not feeling well. When, for example, you get a new pet and someone needs to be home to train it, or to even just give it the time and attention that it needs. And of course, I'm not even speaking of, let alone kids, right? That really need that full-time care and attention. So when I speak of homemaker, that's why I like bringing in Dona de Casa, the lady of the house. There's really so much more to it than the tasks. Although when both people are working outside or inside the home, both of my husband and I work inside the home technically, but it's still another job, at least the task part of it that needs to be done. But the caregiving part of it is something that ironically can be equated to a good meal, right? Something that takes time, care, attention, and really that when I mean care, I also mean love. Like you're really literally putting love into it. Otherwise, it is just a job. And I remember when I was, quote, just a homemaker, so doing all those things and able to have the time to put the care and attention into not just our home. The home is the container of the love and the caring and the place of nurturing. And when I was able to do that on a full-time basis, I remember when we would go to a party or something, and of course people are like, what do you do? And I remember saying, when I would say homemaker, I myself had this sense of like I'm not enough, I'm not doing enough, I'm not contributing enough in this world. And so whether you can't, I mean, some can literally hear other people's thoughts. So I don't know if this was imagined, me projecting back on myself, or I was actually reading their body language. Because when you say homemaker, unless you're in a group of other homemakers, I think people have a hard time relating and knowing what to ask next, right? And so I would myself hear some of the following thoughts. And again, I think this was my own projecting because I was brought, I believe, I imagine this is because I was brought up in an era where feminism was very strong. And that meant that you had to be doing something outside of the home in order to be of worth in our society and of value. And so even though I loved doing the homemaking, I loved what that entailed, there was still always this voice inside of me that said the following, and I assumed other people were thinking as well. This is a short list. That's not real work, or that's not enough challenge to keep a woman's brain enriched and to grow one's knowledge and talents. Wow, how boring. She must be boring. Again, being at the party and, what do you ask? What does a person ask next if someone says they're a homemaker as opposed to a buyer at a company, which also I found difficult to converse about just for comparison. Also, she must be dull-minded. How could anyone spend all day at home just taking care of the home? How does she have any sense of value or worth if she does not work outside of the home, contribute to improving society, and bring in an income from work? Women have worked so hard to become equals with men, and she chooses to be a Stepford wife, which I first heard from my dad, and I didn't even know what he was referring to. I had to, first my husband filled me in, and then we watched the movies as well. And as a side note, I think the most recent one with Nicole Kidman, I think we're actually headed towards that in some form or fashion more than we realize, as women and men will pine for the masculine man and the caregiving woman. And believe me, there were many more ways that I myself, and I assumed from others, that I was being subtly shamed, implying that a homemaker is a woman choosing to hold herself down. So I realized that not every woman is pining to be at home to make cupcakes and muffins and make a big, entirely homemade, wholesome meal for their family. But what I'm hearing in the rumbles of the podcast realm and out there on social media, I don't think we're too far away. At least, so what makes I think the newer Stepford Wives movie very interesting. I think it sounds like, especially the younger generations, you're waking up to the, it's like an inner waking up to what has been stifled for a couple of generations. And I would say that I'm definitely one of those generations where it was, here are your dolls, here, play house, but you have to learn how to essentially be like a man, and you have to be out in this world. And if you're not working outside the home, if you don't have a career, if you don't have something that occupies yourself outside the home and you don't bring in income, then you don't have value, and you are decreasing your value because you're not learning, building up your resume. And it seems to me, and I'd love to hear from you, younger generations, Gen Z and younger, if that's something that's really stirring within you, because I think my generation, especially, and I'm apparently the earliest millennial and the very last Gen Z, and it's a gray area, and I can definitely relate to both generations. And I think we still had that inkling, like, okay, we still want to have a family and, have the home and all that picture, right? But it had to involve the woman, the mom, the wife having the career as well. Like that was like essential. And I've been reading some interesting stuff lately that I'd like to actually interview the authors at some point here, because it brings up some very interesting conversation on the different waves of feminism and really what was the message. So, okay, going off a bit on a tangent, want to wrap this up here. So I remember during the pandemic, I was working really feverishly because the business was growing, so much was going on. I didn't yet have contractors hired to help out. And I was literally just doing tasks every day that just getting stuff done. Like I was on a hill, a muddy hill, and I would reach the top and get my tasks done one day, and then the next morning, I had all of them to accomplish again, let alone trying to get ahead. And it was just exhausting. I mean, a regular day, a light day would have been 8 hours of work. And mind you, that's all at home. I'm not taking long lunch breaks. I'm not commuting. This is like, bam, right at the computer, calling people, doing all sorts of stuff. And it was really exhausting. I remember saying to my husband at one point, I think I'd like a wife/homemaker to, just come home to a good meal and a cozy home and just chill. And we laughed. He, of course, understood what I meant. And I think a lot of this journey of myself building a company, running a company, was to give me these insights of to have perspective of both sides. Of course, I'm not a man, and I'm very much not like a man, but to have the experiences that maybe more men go through in business in particular and providing has given me some amazing insights that I wouldn't have had otherwise, and certainly did not appreciate in what my husband went through. And so that was a funny moment where, of course, he'd just be like, yep, I get it. And I was realizing finally for myself, yes, I get it. And I could imagine, again, I'm not a man, but I could imagine for a man who's especially working hard in the trenches every day and just wants to come home to a great meal, a cozy home, a peaceful environment, and to say to someone, yes, my wife stays home, she's a homemaker, she's a housewife, would give a man a sense of pride in a way, to say that to another, to be able to do that and provide for, yes, it's providing for himself in that way, but to be able to be a part of creating that and creating that environment for him and his family. So, and just for a little bit of perspective, nowadays, when I look back longingly at the homemaking days, it's, you don't know what you have sometimes until you don't have it anymore. And I have very rewarding work, especially in the sense that I know, so I primarily right now am building and operating a large online wellness platform, primarily where people can learn about herbalism, to be herbalists. We have full-blown curricula, and we're building up naturopathy as well, and a number of other side projects. And that involves 3 full-time contractors and over 20 part-time contractors. So just to give you some idea of the scale of this. And so there are days where, on a weekly basis now, regularly, like every week, I go through the amount of stress that was, just a periodic amount of stress as a homemaker. So preparing for Thanksgiving, or preparing for a trip, or maybe preparing to move, that's always a big, big deal. And now that's a regular weekly thing for me. And I do look back fondly, longingly. I do look forward to times where that my days are more easeful in that way. But I do appreciate the amount that I've grown and what I've been able to do in the work that I do. So definitely, life teaches you. So in conclusion, being a homemaker is not simply a job or an occupation. I can definitely see that these days, because that's the way I used to look at it. But really, it's a role, it's a way of being. A homemaker makes the home a sanctuary, a place where people want to gather. Family and friends, of course, want to gather there, but strangers who've never been to your home also, through what they've heard from others and just kind of the energy that exudes from maybe an event that you had, also know about your home. I mean, think about it as like your favorite restaurant, where they really take care of you well. You even when you tell someone about it, they feel like, oh, I want to go there. And it's definitely more than the food, although it's definitely about the food and the thoughtful arrangement of the house. There's so much more to homemaking. It's the love, it's the care, it's the attention that comes from everything that the Dona, the lady, does. And it's absolutely more than a job. You don't punch in at a clock at any point. It's a way of being. And, love is anytime. It's all the time. It's in everything. And that takes time and space to build, to fill. And it's something that you can see and sense, but you can't, but it's intangible, right? So I think we'd actually be better off if more wives could stay home, or would allow themselves to stay home. I think there are many who would like to, and I hear this more and more these days. And for many also, it's just if they could afford to, right? And for some, they do it. They make sacrifices, but they make a way of doing it. And I think in a future, maybe a part 2 or something, maybe we'll talk about how to make that possible. That was the reason that I started a business from home. And maybe some things that, I would recommend if you don't want to be running a big business with 20 some contractors someday, maybe you just want to keep it low key, how to keep it low key. And I think the main thing is that there are just things that money can't buy. I mean, of course, you can hire out your cooking and cleaning, by going out to eat. You can have someone else decorate your home, but there is just no replacement for having a person who is really filling the home, like the hearth, right? Many of us don't have fireplaces these days, but for anyone who's been around even a campfire, and there's nothing that can really replace that radiant sense of warmth. And I think that is what the Dona de Casa, the lady of the home, is when she's enabled to have that time and space. And of course, she takes it upon herself to enrich, to care for the environment and those in it. And I just imagine that, I know it's not for everybody. Some kids are better off with both parents working, and some homes are better off with someone being occupied by something else. Some people are really troublemakers. But for those especially who do really want to fulfill that role, and it's within them, I hope for you that you don't take on the shame that I think is out there, is readily available, that you're not being enough by being at home and by being a homemaker. It's absolute blessing if you can do that and be that home base. It's hard to describe it without using the word home. It's in so much of our vocabulary, so many of our phrases. And I just hope for you that, unlike me, when I was in that role, that you see it as the absolute blessing that it is, and the blessings that you can then extend onto others, whether they're in your home or outside your home. Really, how that presence is such an asset to your family and therefore society. We'll also talk about in a future podcast how you can still contribute to your greater community without over occupying yourself, that it takes you away from your home. So we'll talk about that later. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Are you a homemaker? Have you been a homemaker? Did you have a mom or someone in your life? Maybe it was a friend's house that you loved to go to, and it just really nourished you because there was someone in that home you could tell that was really enriching and filling that home with love and care. I'd love to hear about it. And men especially, what value does a woman, or has a woman, brought to your life? Specifically, I'd imagine your wife, who contributes to the home, who is a homemaker, full-time or part-time, or when she is able to invest more time in the home. What does that do for you? Okay. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Take care.